Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, general ages, you are listening live to episode number 56 of the All Thing Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Brandon Lewis, Joey Snyder here with you as always.
What's going on, Brandon? Oh my God, the energy is up. You know me, I like to come in nice, calm, cool, collected. Uh, got a lot to talk about. Cavs did some good things, did some not so good things. I don't know who to put the blame on, but still early in the season. 20 games is when I'll start judging everybody. That's usually the benchmark. But let's get right into it. Let's see how the Cavs did. Talk about it, and hopefully everyone agrees.
Yeah, obviously the Cavs embarked on their West Coast trip this past weekend, but they started off with Friday night in Detroit without Darius Garland, without Donovan Mitchell. And, I know we both said going into last week, Detroit could be one of those iffy games because they always play the Cavaliers tough. But without Mitchell, without Garland, the Cavs were able to run away and basically dismantle the Detroit Pistons.
No Mitchell, no Garland, no problem. Kevin Love had almost a triple-double in that game, I believe. I think he was two rebounds shy.
I believe so, yeah.
I think he tied his career high in assists. That game. Mobley, had a good game. Jared Allen had a monster game. That's what you expect from a team. When you don't have your stars in, you have to have a team that can still compete. And like you and I said last week, that's a team that can, even though they're not very good, they can give you some problems. One of those games that maybe you should win, but you don't. But at the end of the day, no Garland, no Mitchell. They rested them because the prior game with the Celtics, I think they both had a little sore ankle and knee and stuff like that. So went in and took care of business.
Yeah, I think too, for me, it was really impressive, when you're down two of your guards, Karis LeVert playing at point guard, that night, a position that he's not regularly playing at, and to go in there and to have guys like Lamar Stevens, guys like Dean Wade, guys like Jetty Osman really step up. Great team victory for the Cavs as they embarked then on their West Coast trip, which of course started off Sunday against the Lakers. A game that once again, to me, embodied, the Cavs' regular season game so far. And that is mostly, not playing very well, especially in the first quarter. And then in the second half, just coming out. And I don't know whether it's adjustments. I don't know whether it's being, lit into at halftime, as we talked about last week. I don't know what the scenario is, but the fact of the matter is the Cavaliers have come out in the second half of that Laker ball game, and they absolutely took apart LeBron and crew.
I mean, Donovan Mitchell is really unbelievable on this team. Him and Garland are playing well together, except for the last game, which we'll talk about. But I don't really think that was on Mitchell. This team is just it's a very complete team, and they can they need to learn to get out to bigger leads faster, and that was something that we kept talking about last year. And this year it doesn't matter. They're down 5 or down 10 or down 15. You just know at some point they're going to make a run. It's just a matter of if they can hold on to it. So, yeah, that Laker team is in such disarray, though. I mean, that is a really. I never thought that I would see a LeBron James led team be so bad. I mean, and that team has Anthony Davis, and unfortunately, Russell Westbrook, who has taken probably one of the biggest drop-offs in maybe NBA history, going from a guy who can lead a team to absolute garbage, hot garbage. He might be worse than garbage. What's worse than garbage, Brandon?
Could you say worst player potentially in the entire NBA?
We'll go dog crap. He's dog crap right now. And let's not beat around the bush. He's terrible. But LeBron James has always been able to lift up the guys around him. But we all know the secret, because it isn't a secret. You surround LeBron with shooters. They have almost no shooters.
No shooters.
They might have like one or two.
I think there was a stat where the Lakers, like out of the 13 worst 3-point shooters in the NBA, the Lakers had 9 of them.
Yeah, it's bad out there. But I mean, the Cavs came in, took care of business, weathered the storm early on. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen were in foul trouble that game. They really didn't even get a lot of playing time till that second half. So, they weathered whatever was thrown at them and came away with another W.
Yeah, again, like I think pretty much how all of these games have mostly gone this year. Obviously, outside of the Clippers and the Kings the other night, the Cavs have somewhat, I think, of a formula now, and what we're seeing because we are about 10 to 12 games in, and that formula is really second half dominance. A lot of these first halves, especially the first 6 minutes to 12 minutes of the ball game, they are coming out and they are not playing like themselves, especially on the defensive end. Offensively, they look like that they can score baskets, but on the defensive end, they're just flat out not covering anybody in that first quarter. And then by the time you look up, I think the Lakers had like what 70 or 75 points early on in the third quarter, and they only scored like 30 of that the rest of the ball game. So again, I don't know if it's scheme adjustment at halftime. I don't know if it's just the will of feeling out your opponent and the Cavs feeling like that they are better than that team and they can go in and dominate. But that's what we kind of saw the first two games. And then obviously, when we all thought the Cavs had a great chance to go to 3-1 or 4-0 on this West Coast trip as we head into the Golden State game tonight at the time of this recording on a Friday, boy, those last two games did not go right.
No, for first you had the Clippers, and then you had um
Sacramento.
Sacramento. And honestly, I think that I'm going to lump these two games in together because I kind of feel the same issue happening with both games. Number one, I'm not putting this on anyone, but I feel like JB kind of went away from using the bench as much as he was in prior games. And number two, I think they're just getting tired on that West Coast. I think it's just they want to get back home, want to get back east, and um, you know, sometimes this is what you have to do. You have to weather the storm a little bit. You're gonna take a loss or two here and there, and then you're gonna come back home, regroup. But unfortunately, before they do that, they got to take on the Warriors tonight.
Yeah, I think too, it's the ability to finish ball games. And we talked about this, a little bit going into the season, but the Cavs are still a very young team. The Cavs need to learn how to win and how to win close ball games. And last year at the beginning of the season, we were so excited because they were winning these kind of low scoring, grinded out, gritty games that we did not expect them to win. And so this year, the expectations have changed. And I think because of that, as Sophia pops into the picture here, if you were listening on video to All Things Cleveland Cavaliers, subscribe to us, by the way, at Fully One Media LLC on YouTube. But yeah, I think I think the Cavs, again, I don't want to put tired as an excuse though, because I get you're on the West Coast, you're away from home, you want to get home, but at the end of the day, these are games they have to win, and both of the games were winnable, and both times it just kind of felt like the Cavs somewhere in that second half lost energy, they lost focus. Offensively, you get to tell a lot of times when an NBA team loses focus, and it's when they start going isolation basketball. And I think Darius Garland obviously struggled against the Kings on Wednesday. There was not a lot of ball movement. It was very guard centric with Garland and Mitchell. And when you have that, and when you're not moving the basketball, and when you keep missing shots, that's when your defense is going to suffer because you're not converting. Teams are getting rebounds, they're getting on a fast break, they're getting the home crowd into it. And so I think all of that combined really is what this team, it's a learning experience, and it's not a concern yet, but there are signs now that if you do not get that corrected, we are going to have an issue here down the line in the next week if the Cavs don't find a way to pull off, one of these next two free games here down the stretch. You're on mute, Joey.
Sorry about that. Um, one of the things that these last two games, like I said, it doesn't seem like they've been using the bench as much. You haven't seen Jetty getting in as much, or Dean Wade, and those two guys have been critical to the Cavs' success these first few weeks of the season. So I think that in those stretchy games where where JB maybe feels like he needs his best players on the court, sometimes you need to mix it up. You need to show them something that they're not, that they're already, the Kings, the Lakers, for a long stretch of these games, or those games, they were seeing the same thing and they figured it out. When you bring Dean Wade in, or I'm Kevin Love was really the only one off the bench that was seeing significant minutes. But even Love's every time Love was in that Kings game, they got close, and then he would take them out, and then that's where they would get pushed. They'd get pushed further away. So I don't know if it was a game plan thing, or like I said, I think maybe they're just getting tired out there on the West Coast. These West Coast trips are rough. But it's something that I think they'll get through. I think that they're going to have a little bit of a comeback night tonight, and do pretty well the next few games.
Okay, well, let's talk about it, because we're only going to preview three games here. Obviously, the Cavs have a little bit of break after they're done on Sunday, but we will start things off here with Golden State. That is tonight at the time of this recording on November 11th. They are going to the Chase Center, a rematch of course, all of those NBA finals with the Golden State Warriors we played over the last 4 years. Every time the Cavs match up with Golden State, there's just some electricity in the air, at least on the side of Cavs and their fans. Obviously, a lot of the Cavs players were not around during those finals days outside of Kevin Love, but Golden State still has the majority of their big three. With Steph, obviously Clay is working back from injury, but he's playing most nights for Golden State, and you got Draymond Green as well. I for some reason, I know Golden State is just coming off a bad loss to Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and they lost 5 in a row, but they're starting to right this ship. I don't think the Cavs bounce back tonight. I think this is about a 7 to an 8 point loss. I think it's close for 3 quarters. I think Golden State, Curry and company just go crazy in the fourth quarter. They pull away, and the Cavs will end up going, what would that be on this West Coast trip? 1-3, because you would have the Lakers, Clippers,
Yeah.
Kings, and then Golden State.
I think the Cavs are going to bounce back tonight. Klay Thompson is just, ever since he got injured, he's not the same player. Draymond Green he's not LeBron James. He's not who he once was. The player who honestly probably to me scares me the most on the Warriors outside of Steph Curry is Jordan Poole, and he's been all out of sorts after getting absolutely obliterated by Draymond Green in practice. This team is not on the same page. They haven't been. That's why they've had a really slow start. And then they're going to run into a Cavs team who I think is going to be really hungry for a win tonight. I think the Cavs pull it out, and I don't even think it's really that close. I think the Cavs win by 10, 12.
Wow. See, I think Golden State is one of those teams that actually match up really well with the Cavs. I think that they have a lot of depth. You got Wiggins, you got Wiseman. I think is in this year. You got Kaminga, you got Looney, I believe, who's still there. So they have a lot of pieces to me that they can kind of throw at the Cavs.
Yeah, but of all those players you just named, do any of them match up with Jared Allen or Evan Mobley?
See, I think they do.
There's
I think
not
that
not
I
one
think they
player you
do.
just mentioned is even close to as talented as Jared Allen, who's an all-star, or Evan Mobley.
Not as talented, but they can bang around. They can be physical. They can throw different bodies at you. It's
Yeah,
it's
but the Cavs can too. Karis LeVert, you know, Kevin Love off the bench. They get Jetty and Dean in there. I
they
think
can, but will they? Is
that
is the
I th-
question.
I think they will. I think you're going to see them heat up. And I just don't. I think Steph is going to have to try and win this one by himself tonight. Him and maybe a combination of him and Jordan Poole, or him, Clay, and Jordan. But Jordan Poole's been all out of sorts. Clay's been has not been himself at all. Draymond is almost not even a factor anymore at this point. So I think that they would. I think the Cavs would have to play down right now to lose this game. And obviously, the Warriors are still a really good team. They're the defending champions, but I think the Cavs win this one fairly easily.
All right. Well, let's move on to the game Sunday. They return back home, which is arguably one of the hardest games you play every year. Coming back home, coming off a West Coast trip, because the players say it's like you're still on the West Coast. You're trying to get your body, your recovery time back to normal. And the Cavs are taking on a very young, a very hungry Minnesota Timberwolves team. And for me, because I think that they are going to lose to Golden State, I think this is a much needed bounce back game. I think it's going to be a very close game. Minnesota with Towns and Gobert, they have again two bigs that to me match up really well with the Cavs. You also the young stud Anthony Edwards. So I think the Cavs are the better team. I think they're a better coach. I think they're deeper than Minnesota. I think this is the game where a Dean Wade or a Jetty Osman or even a Lamar Stevens, who we saw last week in the Motor City against Detroit. I think that's the type of game where you get guys that you least expect to come off the bench and help this team get back to their winning ways. I think once again it will be another slow start. The Cavs will come back and they will get a bounce back. I'm going to say fairly close, about a 4 or 5 point victory against Minnesota Sunday night.
See, now this is the game that actually scares me. Now, Minnesota is another team, much like the Warriors, who have gotten off to a slow start. They're not as good as people expected, but they match up with the Cavaliers
Yep.
because you have Gobert and you have Allen, you have Karl Anthony Towns, you have Evan Mobley. I think where this game is going to be won is actually going to be won by Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland,
Yep.
and in the backcourt. I don't think D'Angelo Russell and Anthony. I think Anthony Edwards is very good player, but I just don't think that they match up. They're going to match up with Garland and Mitchell, and I think that's where I think the Cavs are going to take it. I think it's going to be very close. I could see it going both ways, but I think I agree with you. Very close game. I think the Cavs pull it off like 2, 4, 6 points, somewhere around there.
So, and then this is where maybe the most interesting matchup to the season to date is, because next Wednesday night, approximately 5 days from now, the Cleveland Cavaliers will head into Milwaukee, take on the team that I said this year I think they're going to be the best team in the East. Now, admittedly, I did not check the standings before we started recording this podcast. I'm not even sure if they still are undefeated at this point. I can fact check that while you give your opinion of this game. But this is going to be a very interesting test for the Cavs. I want to see how Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Kevin Love, Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, whoever you want to throw at Giannis Antetokounmpo. I want to see how the Cavs defend Giannis, specifically without Chris Middleton, who I believe is getting back still from his injury. And I want to just see how this Cavs team match up with the Bucks. I want to see if they can play with them. Because we saw last year what the Cavs did in January against that Milwaukee team. They pretty much took them apart, and that's when we all thought the Cavs had a chance to be, a top 3 seed in the conference. So I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to come down to Giannis Antetokounmpo making a crazy takeover superstar-ish best player in the world type fourth quarter. I think the Bucks dig out another very close, down to the wire 3-4 point ball game.
So the Bucks have lost. They are 10-1.
Okay.
I don't know who they lost to. I didn't like this is I think that that's going to be a huge game for the Cavs. Very much like the Celtics were, because the Celtics have, after those losses to the Cavs, have really gotten it back together. The Celtics and the Cavs are tied for second in the East at 8-3. The Bucks obviously are number one. I thought the Bucks would not be this good. I did not think they'd be 10-1, 11 games of the season, and I was 100% wrong on that for my prediction in our episode talking about seeds. I think the Bucks probably are one of the best teams in the NBA, if not the best. Giannis is just an absolute monster, but the Cavs show up when they need to show up. This West Coast trip has taken a lot out of them. By the time they play the Bucks, I think that they're gonna be back on schedule. I think that these next two games they're gonna play they're really gonna have to grind it out to win. Although honestly I think that they're really just gonna beat up the Warriors tonight. But I think that Bucks game is gonna be a hey, we are one of the best teams in the NBA game. They know it. They're gonna want to prove it because last year, how many times against the 76ers, that was our brick wall. Every
Yeah.
time it was, I think three of the four times we played the 76ers last year was to jump into number two or number one or,
Yep.
or some
And
and we and
every
we
time.
every time and we could not do it. I think the Bucks is a game that they're going to be playing. I think that they're going to be right there, a game or two back. And I think the opposite of what you do. I think the Cavs are going to win by two because this is a team that is very hard to bet against any team in the NBA. It's hard for me to sit here, even when we did it, right before the season, and I sat down and I said, okay, they're going to lose this game. They're going to lose it. Seeing them now on the court together, it's really hard for me to take another team because I just don't believe that the Cavs will lose. I didn't believe they'd lose against the Clippers. I didn't think they'd lose against the Kings. Really didn't think they'd lose against the Kings. But the Kings are one of those teams that they, that's one of those teams that they can beat you on any night. They got some good players. But I think the Cavs and I think it's JB's going to have a good game plan. I think that he's going to rotate the players in where they need to be. Middleton, I don't think is going to be in that game still. And the one thing the Cavs have been able to do a really good job of this year is take star players out of games. Look at when they played the Celtics. Yeah, Jason Tatum, he probably would have scored 50 on any other team. Cavs held him to 25, 30 points when same with Jaylen Brown, kind of took Jaylen out of it too. And I'm not saying that you're going to stop Giannis, but if you can stop him from, you know,
Yes.
35 points, 15 rebounds, and maybe 25 points, 10 boards, you're giving yourself a chance to win. Drew Holiday is still playing at a very high level, which I didn't think he would be. But I think that this Cavs team is just they're hard to bet against, and I'm gonna say Cavs by two.
Yeah, again, like here's the thing. I think this is where the Cavs are at currently. They are currently 8-3. They could very well be 11-0. Let's be honest, all three of their losses were completely avoidable. They arguably should be 10-1. Um, but I think that these next three games are three games, and I know you think obviously different of the Golden State game, but these are three games where the Cavs could get their season back on track. They could be at 10-4. They could be in 11-3, but they could also very well be 8-6, 9-5. And so that will I think that this three-game stretch here very early in the season will dictate what happens the last part of the season.
I agree with you 100%. All three of these games, I think this Cavs team, I will not. I would put up against any team in the NBA, and I think that they can. And I think that they can win. There's not one team in the NBA that I go, this is going to be a blowout or this is going to be a loss. Any team, I think that they can win. which we couldn't say last year. Last year we couldn't go, okay, we knew, okay, they're going to play this team, it's going to be close, we think that they could potentially pull it out, but let's be realistic here. Realistically, this season I have not seen a game that the Cavs should not have won. They lost to the Raptors after Darius Garland almost got his eye taken out. They lost to the Clippers in a game where it just seems like they ran out of gas, and JB wasn't putting in the bench players that have been winning them games. Same goes for the game against the Kings. I think the Kings game was probably the only game where I thought they really maybe have lost, but even then I still thought to myself, there was things that they could have done. But but really, some players just get hot. Look at like Trey Lyles on the Kings. He got hot, was knocking down threes every time the Cavs scored a bucket, wouldn't let him get back into it. So this time, I think the Cavs, I think they're gonna get that. They're gonna get their heads right. They're gonna take Golden State. They're gonna squeak one out against the Timberwolves. I think they're gonna take it to the Bucks, and I think they're gonna walk out. But just as easily, like you said, they could be 8-6 by the time we talk next time. And even if they are, it doesn't deter me from the season. It's a young season. There's going to be growing pains, and it's the same with every team, but especially with this Cavs team because they're rotating in a lot of people. They're still trying to get, we have seen Garland and Mitchell and they can work together, but they're still getting acclimated to each other. So there's still a lot of things that need to get cleaned up, but all in all, even with these two losses, the Cavs look really good. I'm really excited, and I can't wait to see these next three games.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what, Joey, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you guys so much for listening to this special weekend edition of the All Things Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. It's been a crazy week for everybody, not just for the Cavs going on the West Coast, but for everybody in general. We thank you guys for spending part of your weekend with us, and we promise you we will be back here with more loud energy next week, hopefully in our normal recording time. And let's see if the Cavs can get to that 11-3 mark.
Brandon, always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk about the games next week. Only one thing to do, buddy.